All right. It is about noon, about noon. And so we are going to get our Beyond the Headlines started. My name is Jay Rodriguez. I'm the local editor for the Post and Courier out of our Myrtle Beach office. I've been here for 11 of the past 15 years. As local editor, I oversee our news coverage in the Myrtle Beach area and Georgetown area. I've got a staff that works covering Georgetown County governments, Horry County governments. We also have some roaming reporters out there as well, some freelancers who work for us to make sure that we cover as much of the Grand Strand as possible. In this Beyond the Headlines, we are talking about the sizzling hot summer tourism season, and it is my honor and privilege to have with us Dr. Rob Salvino of Coastal Carolina University. Dr. Salvino has an incredible past and analyzes this area as well as others throughout the nation as well. And Rob, if you can provide us with a little bit of background about yourself and how you look at the economy here.
Sure. Thank you, Jay, and thank you for the opportunity as well. This is great to be a part of, and I really appreciate it. So, my background, I'll try to be brief, but I could be long-winded. But getting before, I became a professor at CCU. I did my graduate work at Georgia State University in Atlanta. Got my PhD in economics there. Before that, I was in Columbus, Ohio. I worked in industry, private sector, started in civil engineering, in geotechnical, because I had an undergraduate background in geology, and then went into property insurance with Nationwide Insurance. And it was really the combination of those couple of experiences, along with my family background, particularly my wife, been married, 23 years. My wife's been in the same industry for 20 some years, pharmaceuticals. And, we spend a lot of time together, and I'm very curious about what she does and likewise. But I was fortunate to be in the homes and businesses of so many different people going back to Columbus, Ohio in insurance. And I had an extreme curiosity of where people came from, how they got where they were, the types of experiences that they had. And I really just translated that into economics. And so when I came here, I had the really good fortune, coincidentally today, of meeting people, small business owners, real estate people. In 2007 is when I came here. And people that are on our advisory boards, for example, today. Great people that I'm just really lucky to have gotten to know and have helped me tremendously learn the area. Myrtle Beach is no simple area to become accustomed to, because it's very different from any other city. I'm an urban economist by training. And so we start with our simple models of the monocentric city, extend that to the multicentric city, and then you come to Myrtle Beach and you have this line, the ocean, it really determines everything, you could say, Big Blue. And I met so many restaurant owners, just people that really, I just learned a lot from. And I think my background, more than just what I have to offer as a professor, it's what I've learned from other people and continue to learn from other people. And that's kind of the perspective that I take into my research and into my talks around town and elsewhere and into the classroom. And it is that if you listen to people and you observe, and I do this everywhere I go, I cannot help doing that. In preparing for this talk, Jay, I mean, it is interesting that the economy is booming so strong right now, particularly in tourism, but yet we have a very significant problem in the hospitality industry with labor, right? And it is, it's a very difficult quandary, and fixing it is not simple. How we got there is also not straightforward. You can look at all kinds of studies and hear politicians and any number of things, and it's a hard thing to sort out for sure, but there are some very straightforward ways of looking at it from an economic perspective. And hopefully we'll be able to do that some today.
Sure, sure. It sounds like you're chomping at the bit to really get into this subject. Both you and I love this subject. I know we've talked on a number of times. You certainly have the academic credentials behind you to support some of your findings. But just a reminder to our viewers and attendees that this is being recorded. So if you want to kind of rewind and head back, there is an opportunity to be able to do that once this Beyond the Headlines is complete. We also want to remind you that you can ask questions. This is an interactive session. And so Dr. Salvino has opened himself up to some questions. And we do have some questions that were submitted prior to Beyond the Headlines. So we will be getting into those shortly here. Dr. Salvino, you've had some experience in the Hammock Coast, the Pawleys Island, Myrtle's Inlet area. If you can you tell us how the summer has been so far for the South Strand? And let's kind of start there and we'll work our way up to the Grand Strand.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll do it for two things. One, in full disclosure, I live in the Hammock Coast. I live in Myrtle's Inlet. My children go to school in Pawleys Island, Waccamaw schools. And I coach baseball in Pawleys Island right now, getting ready for a tournament this weekend. And my kids play sports, so we've been highly active. But from the numbers perspective, retail sales. So let's just take Georgetown County. And anyone not familiar, geographically and probably the population, half of Georgetown County is in the tourism area, and the other half is more in the industrial area across the bridge. But retail sales certainly driven by the Waccamaw Neck, the Hammock Coast area, as you say. And Georgetown is up 37% March 21 compared to March 2019. And that's an important thing. A lot of the numbers that you'll see reported are comparing 21 to 20. Well, that's a problem because we have the severe pandemic period. And so you want to go back to 2019 and try to extrapolate forward and see how we're doing before the pandemic occurred. In February, Georgetown County was up 15% compared to the same period, 2019. We could compare that to Horry County. Horry was up 19% in March compared to 19 and 10% in February, just to get an idea of, Horry and Georgetown counties. So very much, and as the pandemic was going on, so March 15th, if you want to call it that, 2020, when it really hit, then once, the lockdowns kind of let up a little bit, I'd say the summer period of last year, what the Hammock Coast has is vacation rental properties, not a lot of hotels compared to the Grand Strand, right? A lot of vacation rental properties. And what we see in urban economics and the migration patterns, just in the Sun Belt growth, we saw that increasingly to be the action during the pandemic, both in a short-term basis for people trying to get away from areas where they couldn't live comfortably temporarily, but also fast forwarding their movement to places like the Grand Strand, the whole entire South really, that has more of a opportunity to spread out. So we've seen that heightened, and it has been, there's just been a lot of activity here, the Hammock Coast and the Grand Strand as well.
Absolutely. I think that there's some mobility that people have. I think you were kind of alluding to mobility of if I can work from home, why not pick the home that I want to be in? And I love living by the ocean. So let's jump on that plan now, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So undoubtedly there's some similarities. I know that there's a difference between the Hammock Coast with more rental properties and condos, or more vacation rental properties in the Hammock Coast, but undoubtedly there's some similarities between the Hammock Coast and the Grand Strand. What are some of the challenges that the Grand Strand has faced this summer? I mean, the big elephant in the room obviously is labor, correct?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And as an economist, maybe because I live here in Myrtle's Inlet and do a lot of work in Myrtle Beach, and our board members come from both, I personally don't separate the two. I don't even think about the differences between Murrells Inlet and Myrtle Beach so much because I'm in both of them all the time. And I can say, but you're right. The differences that you're talking about, without question, Murrells Inlet is a more laid back area. Pawleys Island is a more laid back area, right? That's the type of thing. It's not as high paced as the Myrtle Beach type of action, right? I love them both. My kids play soccer in Myrtle Beach, and you know, if you're at Doug Shaw Stadium in an evening in the summer or the spring or fall, and you see the sunset coming over the stadium stairs that my wife and I love to run while our kids are out there practicing, wow, there is really probably no better place on earth, right? And that's right in the heart of Myrtle Beach. But to get back to your question, the labor issue, this is I'll put it like this, supply and demand is the best model I can use that applies to really everything as an economist, right? I tell my students and principals, I know someone who has a supply and demand model tattooed on his left arm, and maybe it's his right, but it's on his arm. And the thing is, if we look at this labor shortage, and I've got a graph, I was talking with the Appraisal Institute, I don't know, it was a month ago maybe, and I'm trying to just digest this whole entire thing. I'm not going to show a graph, but I'll look at it to help myself. You know, we have a huge supply demand imbalance, and we are still 8 million jobs below where we were before the pandemic hit. 8 million nationwide. That's nationwide numbers, okay? Yet there are $5 trillion of new government transfer payments circulating, getting ready to circulate in the economy, right? 5 trillion. To put that in perspective, before the pandemic hit, our economy was about 19 trillion, all right? Then this pandemic hits, and after just a year, we're at 24 trillion, right? And that could only happen with government spending. There's no other way that type of thing would happen. And the fact that you have that, which is demand, let's call that demand, government spending and other spending is demand. And then on the other side, the labor is how you supply things, how we provide things, right? And if there are 8 million jobs still less than before the pandemic hit, it means we have a significant labor shortage to fulfill this demand that is much greater than it was before the pandemic hit, right? So now let's dig in a little deeper. A lot of those jobs are in the hospitality and leisure service type sectors, and Myrtle Beach depends heavily on those sectors, right? So we really feel this problem.
Absolutely. And that might fast forward to a question that we have received a little bit closer to deadline, but it's a very timely one. I think now is at what point do we get to where the power is to the employee? And there was a little talk of that toward the end of last year in retail, where someone was saying before that there were so many jobs, the abundance of jobs was, that's fine. I want to go take the day off and go to the beach. If you're not going to give it to me, I quit. I'll just find a job tomorrow. And I know you're going to have trouble finding someone to fill my position. So that undoubtedly has to be a problem for our economy, for our workforce. Is it not? Or
sure, absolutely. And I have to say too, in preparing, people that know me know I do a lot of talks, right? I do all number of groups for different associations, professional, whatever. But the topic that you suggested and that we're discussing right now, I've talked to a lot of people about this, and you know, I thank my advisory boards on LinkedIn and the ones for our departments and college and the chambers of commerce. I've reached out to a lot of people talking about this. My own daughter works for Cisco, the food services company, not the tech company, but Cisco, right? She worked in restaurants here. My other daughter works in restaurants. Some of my closest friends own restaurants. And so this is a huge issue. And I'll be talking to a restaurant owner tomorrow on another program. And what we see is competition. There's absolutely no question. There is increased competition for labor, right? It comes in various forms. And it's kind of this, in economics, we call it the general equilibrium. It's like a cycle, right? And so let's mention real quickly some of the things that have happened. The J-1 visa program is very important to this region. It's very important to Disney. It's very important to this whole entire industry. Here's an example of how impactful that has been. I'll go to soccer. U.S. News and World Report just did a write-up on this 2 days ago, I think it was, to talk about how the J-1 visa program has affected industry, something that we wouldn't think of at all. The Dutch soccer school. The Dutch have some of the best soccer coaches in the world, okay? This particular school, Dutch soccer school, runs programs in 6 states. They bring in Dutch coaches. Because of the J-1 visa program constraints through the pandemic, and because of the State Department of the US, they have not been able to bring any Dutch coaches for their zero. The total number is 0, okay? And so that has affected them tremendously. They have had to increase the number of employees they use 2- and 3-fold to take the place of one Dutch soccer coach, not because of their skill, but because of the way they come over here and what they're expecting to get. A similarly qualified coach in the United States probably has a job, right? Is not willing to just, or able to just give up that job for soccer camps for a summer, right? So now let's take that to the restaurant industry. So all of those jobs that would normally be filled by J-1 visa people have to be filled by someone else. So that's increased competition, right? Construction is booming here, right? It's booming all over the Sun Belt. And we've compared this to even the 2005, 2006 boom. It is close, if not there already, in terms of different metrics that we could look at. New housing, sales volume, certainly prices. And those are jobs, there's jobs there. So the other is the unemployment benefits, right? And so there's a huge political discussion. There have been research studies trying to untangle whether or not the unemployment supplement is part of this problem. Undoubtedly, all of these things contribute to this problem. So it is literally a storm that has just hit the hospitality industry squarely. And it is also where the pandemic hit most harshly, right? It was people not wanting to go out to eat, not wanting to travel, not being allowed to, all these types of things. Then when all those are unwound, some of the regulations still affect it. Some of the fears still affect it. And then new opportunities. You say the employee having more power, without question, everyone has taken the increased time that was forced upon us all to rethink things. There's just no question about it, right? And people have made significant changes to their lives, their lifestyles, the opportunities that you might have in the future, invest in yourself, all kinds of things. And that is, making it difficult for employers that are dealing with simply higher turnover, right? There's no question about that. But then we add the other things, a job that maybe it doesn't have benefits. Maybe the working conditions are not what people are willing to accept today, all these different types of things. And that's just looking at it on the average. But each employer has the opportunity to look at that and try to address that in the way that works best for that employer. Sometimes the easy thrown out there solution is just increase the pay, right? And that's not always easy, though. It sounds easy to someone who doesn't really have their dollars affected by it, but the employers really have to weigh how much can the employer increase the pay. Can the restaurant stay open, right? So these are real questions that are being weighed by employers, and employees, certainly as a result of all this, they have gained some power in this regard.
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt that they have, and that kind of leads into one of our first questions. And just a reminder to our viewers, you can send questions in. And as long as it's going along with the hot summer tourism season here in the Myrtle Beach region, we will ask Dr. Salvino. So Ken had asked, how is the hospitality industry overcoming the labor shortage? I know that you and I had talked, and this was early on. This was probably December, January or so. You had indicated, there may have to be human resource departments that reach out to college campuses beyond CCU to bring workers in. Any idea as to whether or not some of those companies did that, and how are they in fact facing this labor shortage?
Sure. So I can't speak specifically for companies how they might have specifically done that, but for example, there's a company called Mise en Place, and it's MISENPL.com. They're a staffing agency nationwide for the hospitality sector, restaurants in particular. And you can read about a lot of the different studies that they have done, and they try to find employees for restaurants. So this is a nationwide problem, right? And without question, employees at restaurants are working harder than they've ever worked. They're working more hours per the individual employee. They're carrying a greater burden, right? And so you might ask, I talked to a culinary program we have in town. We have a fantastic culinary institute, right? And so just went in and talked to some of the folks there and say, how are you training chefs to deal with this problem that they're going to have when they go out and work in the restaurant industry if they don't already work in the industry? But hiring good people is a challenge. It's a good challenge for any industry, right? But particularly this right now. And they've certainly identified some of the things we've already mentioned here, but without question, people that want to be in this industry, and it's a fantastic industry. And if you look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective, a lot of entrepreneurs that own restaurants, they're completely independent, financially independent, have figured out the luxury of time. They've earned the luxury of time. And there's a lot of people going into the industry that really want that, right? They go into it because they want to maybe own a restaurant one day, right? And that's a different type of employee than someone who maybe doesn't have that same aspiration. So I think employers are having more so now to try to understand that potential employee. What type of employee would be good here? Because turnover is an issue, right? And the average turnover, according to Mise en Place, is 2 months is the average stay for a worker in this industry. That would keep a lot of people from owning a restaurant, right? I mean, to try to manage that type of thing. I always tell the friends of mine that own restaurants and hotels and these things, they have a significant skill in managing that type of dynamic that just not a lot of people have, right?
Absolutely. What a novel idea. Understand before trying to be understood. I think it's a great, lesson that all of us can really work toward. Deborah had asked here, will hotels rent to locals if they want to spend a night or two oceanfront? That might come down to the particular owner. I know, generally speaking, for the audience, typically as a local, it's sometimes hard to find a hotel that will rent to you locally, just due to damage and things like that. Previous past bad relationships. Rob, any indication as to whether or not they plan on, or some of the major hotels plan on easing that restriction?
Well, so I'm not specifically aware of a blanket kind of cultural restriction that hotels have. I stay in local hotels fairly often, even on the beach in the off season. What I would say is, if you want a night or two at a local hotel in the summer, you're not going to get that because you're competing with blocks, right? They want the week reservation. There's no way anyone would, even if we go to the mountains, and if you want 2 nights at a ski resort in the winter, no, you're going to have to rent 3 or more because they don't have to rent it for that. It's a problem to do that, right? And it's harder on the staffing for cleaning the room, which we should add. It's not just restaurants that are having this issue with labor. It's also hospitality. Some of the vacancies that we see in the hotels are purpose-driven vacancies, just to be able to maintain a cleanable area of the hotel, to be able to keep rooms clean for the next visitors coming. So I think it's more than that. There's also age restrictions, but I'm not aware of these blanket restrictions on locals. It's more of, go in the off season or be ready to book a week, Sure.
And you've hinted at some of these some of what our area is going through right now, but undoubtedly, there's no question that the area will feel a ripple effect from this summer. Businesses opening late because of staffing shortages, quite possibly not making the maximum amount of money during the area's prime time. So we'll also have to deal with the, we'll never go to Myrtle Beach again, just because every hotel or every restaurant we went to, we had to wait 2 hours. So what type of adverse effect can this year have on upcoming years that our area will have to face head on?
Yeah. So some of these I think are certainly, to use a word that I really don't want to use, but transitory, right? The Federal Reserve has said the inflation effects will be transitory. That brings the whole debate up. But transitory, the thing, I'm not going to Myrtle Beach because of this, that, or the other. I think that's extremely transitory. I think revealed preference has shown that people are coming here, and there may be 1 or 2 or 1,000 that'll say I'm not coming back and actually mean it, but there's 1 or 2 or another 1,000 that are willing to take their place and come down here. We see that with the traffic, we see that in the numbers, right? That's going to continue. The adjustment is certainly going to be, there are new opportunities for labor, for business owners. It's not just warehousing, construction. We mentioned those, tech, low tech, high tech. The economy has certainly shifted because of the pandemic, and much of it was a fast forward in things that we're already building, right? And that is not going to go away. It's going to get even greater. And this region is going to have to deal with that. But in positive ways, I think the region has already been preparing for this, right? This is a place where years ago, we worked with the Chamber of Commerce and studies all the time. One of the things was quality of life, trying to separate. People go to places because they love to be there, right? And there was always this idea that the tourist and the local were just wanting completely different things. But really, people go places because they like the quality of the time spent there. And the chamber and hoteliers and restaurants started to realize, some of the things that the locals like when they go to other places, the tourists are looking for as well. And you start to actually improve your brand, improve the variety of offerings by trying to create that here as well, right? I mean, Market Common is a typical easy example, but what does Market Common offer that maybe the entire Grand Strand on average doesn't offer? But these walkable sidewalk eating is a great example, right? That was something that before the pandemic was very difficult to find across the Grand Strand. And I was actually doing research on this. Why do people love to go to Europe and eat in these sidewalk cafes? How come you don't do it as much here? Sometimes it's a simple regulation or a local zoning issue or a owner of a commercial property that may not allow it, or maybe it wasn't designed for it because of the space. And all of a sudden the pandemic comes, and if you want to continue serving people, you have to serve them outside, right? And so now that fast forwarded, and I think that's going to be one of the positive things that we'll see. We have seen more sidewalk dining already as a result. Just a simple example, but I think it's something it'll transition into place.
Sure. And I guess maybe the question was more toward the almost playfully tongue-in-cheek the Tuesday after Labor Day was known by some locals as Black Tuesday, where a lot of businesses who just didn't make the summer numbers that they thought they were going to make, boom, would announce on Tuesday, we're done, we're closing our doors, i.e. Planet Hollywood. There's a number of businesses that we could talk about, but is there a fear that because of the limited number of hotel rooms, because of the dining areas that were closed off because they couldn't staff them, that there's going to be a lot of these doors closing in the fall, winter, or is it really pretty much anyone's guess?
So if we look at the market on average, first of all, right, the 2020 pandemic was a whole different thing, and restaurants that made it through that, by and large, the restaurants and hotels that made it through that, they made it through possibly one of the worst things in history, right? And so they stand a much better chance of surviving whatever staffing issues. This is a whole different problem now. This problem is a how good are you at adapting to a situation, this labor staffing issue, right? It's not the doom and gloom type of thing. It can be solved, right? Different restaurants, hotels, whatever, will do it better than others. Some may not do it at all, will not do it at all. There will be closures. There always are in every year of every nation's economy, town's economy. There are closures, there are startups, right? We're going to continue to see that. But I don't think that what we will see is, let's call it a major recession in the fall because so many businesses couldn't make it through this problem. I don't think that's the case. The economy right now is really heading in the other direction. Moves are being made to loosen things rather than tighten down on businesses, and voices are being heard. I think the struggles here are true competitive market struggles. Once we get rid of the temporary issues of like the J-1 visa program, the unemployment benefit extension, which is, I think, in 2 days for the state. Once you untangle those, these are competitive pressures, right? And so in a market economy, there are participants who will make adjustments and be better for doing that. And there are those who won't and will fail. And that is always the case.
Excellent. Dr. Salvino, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. We have come up on 12:30. I want to thank everyone for watching Beyond the Headlines. This session has been recorded. So if you did sign up for, well, likely you did sign up for this Beyond the Headlines, it will be sent as a recording to your email address. You can support our work by signing up for any of our free newsletters at postandcourier.com/Myrtle Beach/newsletter-sign up. We also have a fantastic deal on the table right now. You can subscribe to the Post and Courier, all of our branches. It's $4 for 4 months. You get access to our Charleston paper, Greenville, Myrtle Beach, Spartanburg, Columbia. And that is, it's a great deal. It's going on right now. You can head over to postandcourier.com/subscribe to subscribe for that deal for our new subscribers. And then you can also subscribe now to the Post and Courier Myrtle Beach newsletters. We have a number of newsletters that will go right to your inbox and bring the news right to you. That way you're not having to wait for it to go onto one of our social channels. And that is postandcourier.com/Myrtle Beach/subscribe. Speaking of social channels, we do have some social channels that you can follow for the Grant Center, Dr. Salvino's work, and a number of folks there at Coastal Carolina University. On behalf of the Post and Courier, I want to thank you, Dr. Salvino. Thank you, Coastal Carolina University, for cooperating in this Beyond the Headlines look at the Myrtle Beach summer tourism season.
Jay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Enjoy it.
Post and Courier has always been not only the biggest newspaper in the state of South Carolina, but the best newspaper in South Carolina. So for it to come to the Myrtle Beach market is an amazing benefit for those in Myrtle Beach, for those in Georgetown. The quality of journalism that they're bringing to these markets is top-notch. Local journalism is important. It's not often that a community truly gets a chance to experience quality local journalism. Certainly people will get their money's worth when they subscribe to the Post and Courier.